Okay, another response to S's latest video responding to me. So it's like a 45-minute long video, so I took some notes, hopefully shorten this video, but I got a lot of notes here. First, you were clarifying your meaning of able as to be one's capacity to, in this case, procreate. And I mean, you're just stating the same thing. One of the definitions that Merriam-Webster is an individual's mental or physical ability, and that's what I'm talking about. If someone is procreating, I would argue, my argument is stating that they're doing so arbitrarily, so they're not, and then the definition of ability is competence in doing. I'm saying they're not competent to make that decision. And I'm not really saying anything about the people that choose not to procreate. I'm only talking to about people that choose to procreate, and I'm saying they're doing it arbitrarily. That is, they don't have the competence to be making that decision. It's a very important decision. It has drastic consequences. So yeah, I'm basically stating that people that procreate don't have the competence to be doing so. You state there's no scientific consensus on determinism, compatibilism, or libertarianism. First of all, compatibilists are determinists. They're just saying that, yeah, our brains make decisions, and those decisions are based on external influences. It's cause and effect. That's all determinism is, cause and effect. The decisions you make are based on all the experiences you've had in your life. If a person that's only surrounded by a fundamentalist Christian or a fundamentalist Muslim, if that's all the input they ever receive, they're going to be fundamentalist Christian or fundamentalist Muslim. They need something other than that input to cause a change of mind. So, I mean, to say there's no scientific consensus, I mean, it's like the creationists saying, well, there's no scientific consensus on evolution. Right? They say that because they have scientists that, try and argue that evolution is false, even though all the evidence makes it undeniable that evolution is true. So, to say there's no scientific consensus is irrelevant. I have accepted determinism based on all the evidence. I mean, it's cause and effect. The first cause is two agents brought a sperm and an ovum together and created a zygote. We all started off as zygotes. We grow in the womb, and a brain forms. We didn't create that brain. It formed on its own, if you will. And then a few years after birth, we wake up and say, wow, I'm alive. And everything we are is based on the circumstances we were put in. I can't change my mind unless somebody gives me something. I mean, I could come up, something new, but that's all based on the information that's in my brain. The brain takes all the information and crunches it, and perhaps comes up with a new idea. But it was the brain doing it. That's all the evidence points to determinism. Anyhow, you say we can't explain free will, but we cannot deny it either. I can deny well, it depends what you mean by free will. I looked up free will at the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, and it states, free will, in quotes, is a philosophical term of art for a particular sort of capacity of rational agents to choose a course of action from among various alternatives. I guess I wouldn't have a problem with that, especially when they're talking about rational agents. Yes, a rational agent will choose a course of action based on rationality. They're not going to do it based on a whim, especially in cases of procreation, since that involves a third party being brought into the world without their consent. And the various alternatives, they're not going to choose from an irrational alternative, right? So, again, it all depends what you mean by free will, but I can deny the libertarian notion of free will, that we can just do whatever. We can only do what the brain tells us to do, and our brain is going to tell us what to do based on input. It's the brain is like a computer. If all you get is Jesus is your Lord and Savior, and that's all you ever hear, you're going to think Jesus is your Lord and Savior until someone comes up and says, hey, Jesus is a myth because we don't need a Savior. We're just biological organisms, and what we do is based on the circumstances we were put into. We didn't create ourselves. So, I mean, yeah, well, Jesus is, based on the God of Abraham, and the God of Abraham is a complete douchebag because he created everything and then blames the creation for all its problems. It's, if the fundamentalist Christian can't accept that, then, they've been brainwashed too much. Anyhow, you say, you may think all our choices are predetermined, but you cannot deny free will. Again, you have to define free will, because to say that they're predetermined does not say that there's no cause and effect. I hold a certain position, and unless I'm presented with some evidence to prove me wrong, I'm going to stay with this position that I have. It's cause and effect. That's all determinism is. If, like for instance, before I even heard the term antinatalism, I had a vasectomy because of a cause. My first wife miscarried what would have been our second child, and I realized procreation is a dangerous activity. I mean, something horrible could have gone wrong. My first wife could have died. Any number of things can go wrong with procreation. Therefore, I got a vasectomy because I didn't want to be responsible for bringing more harm into the world. You say that I am not up to par on the debate. Well, what evidence do you have of that? I've read about the debate. The free willers, I mean, I had no problem with free willers, especially with the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy definition when it's talking about rational agents. Yeah, we have the ability to choose a course of action. I can lift my left hand, I can lift my right hand, I can do any number of things, but I can't choose to do something irrational. Well, I guess I could, but I wouldn't be justified doing something irrational. In other words, doing something I know I shouldn't be doing, and I do it anyhow. Why would I do that? Again, you say there's no consensus. I don't, so what? All the evidence points to determinism. Just because there's no consensus is not going to change my mind on the subject. You say there are self-appointed authorities. Well, I mean, if you're going to call someone like Sam Harris a self-appointed authority, where do you get off saying that? He's, I don't know what. I'm pretty sure he's got a doctorate in neuroscience. I mean, if he's not authority on the subject, I don't know who is. We cannot explain how it doesn't exist. Well, we can explain that every one of us has a brain. This brain was formed by basically crude forces. The sperm and ovum get together. Boom. A new life form has begun. Your brain develops without you doing anything to create that brain. Your brain was there before you were. Some people want to claim that free will, somehow, somewhere along the line, you took over from the brain. And there's no evidence of that. It's just the brain. You say that's a really big argument and it doesn't really belong here. Well, it may be a big argument, But I say it does belong here because you're making a proposition that I wouldn't make. And somehow you're getting that from my argument. So why would you deny determinism? What's your rationale? Because you're not going to change my mind by simply saying there's no scientific consensus, because there's all kinds of evidence that determinism is a fact. You say, if you want to have your word on that, I don't really care, and it doesn't have anything to do with your argument. Well, if you don't care, I should just shut up, but I'm going to keep talking because it does have something to do with my argument. I am arguing that people who procreate are doing so arbitrarily. All right? In other words, they don't have the mental capacity, the competence to be making that decision. If they're going to do something arbitrarily like procreating, yeah, they've been brainwashed to think. I mean, there is a natalism bias on the planet, basically. It's basically, we all grew up with the boob tube, which has commercials, and they want you to think life is wonderful and procreation is wonderful, families are wonderful, and that's like the default position is procreation is a good thing to do. And that's what they're basing their choice on, is what people have told them about it. That's determinism, cause and effect. They hear procreation is wonderful, and so they do it. Determinism, it has very much to do with my argument. You say, I could give you examples of our free will that you could not deny. Well, but you don't give any. I mean, again, it all depends on your definition of free will. You say, we don't have the ability to explain it for whatever reason. Well, we don't have the ability to explain free will because it's not really there. It's the brain, and that's it. The brain is doing everything through cause and effect. You hold whatever position you hold based on input. All right? Again, if the Muslim is a Muslim because he's surrounded by Muslims. If you again, it's possible for them to choose not to be a Muslim, but they can't. More than likely won't be able to choose that without somebody else explaining to them why it's a wrong position to hold. Cause and effect. That's why I'm making the argument. You may right now think that procreation is a good thing to do. I'm saying it's not, because you're only going to be doing it simply because you want to, and that's not a good reason to procreate. I want people to think about it. If I don't make the argument, then they'll never change their mind. You say, I don't think that determinism, free will, or compatibilism will help us along in our debate. I think it will. Again, compatibilism, is a form of determinism. They're kind of like this Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy definition of free will, where rational agents have the ability to choose from various alternatives. But you can't choose to do something you wouldn't choose to put somebody else in harm's way arbitrarily if you wouldn't want somebody else to put you in harm's way arbitrarily. So you've made the rational decision that you're not going to put somebody in harm's way arbitrarily. If you go against that, you might be something actually physically wrong with your brain, like you got a tumor or something, and yeah, you can't hold people responsible for having a tumor in their brain. But anyhow, you say, since you cannot explain determinism, which I think I'm sure I can explain determinism, it's cause and effect. If I hadn't said that before, so I'm sure I have, but anyhow, that's what determinism is, cause and effect. I mean, where in your history do all of a sudden you take over from your brain? I mean, your brain was there before you existed. It's the brain. The brain responds to input, and it's going to do so based on the mechanics of the brain. But the brain does have the ability to evaluate the input based on previous input. It's all about input output. It's, you know, pretty simple. You say, since you cannot and you cannot refute free will. Well, it depends on your definition of free will again. We're not completely free to do whatever. We're limited in our choices. So you said there's no point to appealing to them as they were established. Well, again, I mean, I'm going to make the argument for determinism. It's cause and effect. I hold this position based on all the information I've accrued over these 51 years. And I have the ability to change my mind, but not without cause. I need a cause to change my mind. You say, if people are unable to choose, then your argument doesn't include them. Well, again, their ability to choose is based on input. They're going to make choices based on the information they have at a particular point in time. Now, if they've never heard the argument that procreation is unethical because it just brings someone into harm's way, then they're going to keep thinking the same thing. They need something else, some other input to change their mind. You continue, if they want to do it, they can do it. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, sure, I could punch somebody in the face who offends me. But if what they offended me was just something they said, I would be wrong to punch them in the face. So, sure, I could punch them in the face. But I'm not going to. I'm going to choose not to because it would be wrong to do so. They can will the act. Well, yeah, but, you know, that's all, again, it's the brain, fundamentally. It's the brain doing it. You say, I can grab a cup of coffee. Yes, I can grab a cup of coffee. I can take a sip. Excuse me. But why did I grab the cup of coffee? Because my brain said, hey, you just read something that said I can grab a cup of coffee, so I grabbed a cup of coffee. You know, my mouth was dry. There's reasons for grabbing a cup of coffee. Again, I'm going to light a cigarette. I haven't started in a while, but smoking is bad. I can say smoking is bad and still smoke. Doesn't make me, I'm not special pleading. I'm saying I'm doing a bad thing. I say if you smoke, you're doing something, you're doing harm to yourself. Anyhow, you say people that can choose to do something. People that can choose. Well, yeah. I mean, again, it's all based on what information you have up to this point in time. If you haven't heard the argument, procreation is not ethical, you can go, wow, what the hell is he saying? Procreation is not ethical. Where did that come from? Right? If they'd never heard, like I said, I never heard that. But wait, a long time ago, I made the decision to stop procreating, based on arguments that are similar arguments. Well, yeah, basically the same arguments that are being made now. So I was an anti-natalist for myself, but now I've applied it to everybody. Again, you're saying, I'm getting the proposition from your argument. I say you're not. I am talking about people choosing to procreate arbitrarily. I'm not even talking about people choosing not to procreate. People choosing not to procreate will have different reasons, you know, more than likely, than the people that choose to procreate. So again, you're creating a proposition that is by definition unverifiable, and you're applying it to my argument, without proper justification. You say they must have choice. Well, again, the choices they're making are based on the input they have at a particular moment in time. They cannot choose not to procreate without some cause. And I'm trying to give them a cause. A pause, if you will. Before you procreate, think about it. Are you doing it for based on reason? Or are you just doing it simply because you want to? Yeah. Yeah, if they don't have the proper information, they won't be making a rational choice. They're doing it simply because they want to. Right, I must make the argument. But you're saying I cannot make the argument because of this alleged proposition that it's not verifiable. No, I gotta make the argument. If I don't make the argument, they'll never change their mind. Somebody must make the argument. You did, like the example you gave, you said, well, I'm quoting you, some of these quotes might be paraphrases, but whatever. You say, if I'm going to accept that you can stop smoking, then you're going to have to show that this is the case. Well, again, I want to say that it's definitely possible for me to stop smoking. Just because you can't verify that I will stop smoking doesn't mean that it's possible that I can stop smoking. It's a possibility. I've actually done it before. Anyhow, you say, if you testify that you have the ability, I'm going to ask you to swim. Well, yeah, I mean, that's right. If I say I can swim, but don't show that I can swim, you're just going to have to take my word for it. But if I can swim, why wouldn't I show you that I can swim? I think that's completely different from procreation. If you say I have the mental ability not to procreate, I can only do that for as long as I don't procreate. And what we do have is people can give their reasons for procreating or reasons for not procreating. That's what we can look at, their reasons. That's what we can verify. What are their reasons for doing a certain action? That we can verify. You say the same thing with knowledge. You must demonstrate that you have that knowledge. Well, I mean, that's it, exactly. The reasons for procreating or the reasons not to procreate. What is your knowledge at this point in time? What makes you think you have the mental capacity to procreate? What gives you the authority? You say, people can change their mind. You could quit smoking and then start again. Yes, in fact, I have quit. I quit for 2.5 years, and I started smoking when George Bush Jr. got re-elected. Basically, I was just like, why the fuck do I want to extend my life on this screwed up planet? So, whatever. You say the only way we can verify whether or not they have the capacity the only way you can verify whether or not they have the capacity to choose to stop procreating is by viewing their actions. No. We can look at the reasons why they chose not to procreate. And, you know, that's what the antinatalist is doing. They're giving their reasons why people should not procreate. And we can look at those reasons and say, are those good reasons not to procreate? If they are, then we should be repeating them as much as possible. You say, we don't know if people have the ability to stop procreating. Actually, well, we don't know if the people with the ability to stop procreating actually have the ability to stop procreating. Well, I mean, again, we can look at their reasons why they're not procreating. If they got good reasons, well, I'd say they're mentally capable of not procreating. You say we can verify 100 or so people that they have chosen not to procreate. Well, see, this is the whole idea of scale, is that you're saying since there's so many people, we can't verify that they've chosen not to procreate. I'm saying, again, why does it matter? Look at the reasons, you know. Get those few hundred people, get their reasons. If they're good reasons, then that's all we need. We make sure as many people as possible know those good reasons to not procreate. You're saying if I could, if my argument was limited to just saying only people that have enough money or whatever should procreate, then my argument would have that application. But the problem is, who decides what enough money is? And whatever other reasons you might have, if they're healthy or whatever. I mean, if having enough money isn't enough. I mean, if you have enough money, why can't you adopt? You know, like, why do you need to procreate? That's the question. There's no good reason to procreate. Having enough money is not a good reason. You can adopt. You don't have to adopt. You can just help the less fortunate. You don't need to procreate. You say, if you're unable to concede, please explain why. And I think you're talking about the first premise, or maybe the second premise too, I don't know, but, well, I'm unable to concede because I'm right. You say, I have shown how you've gotten your proposition, but I've shown where your proposition fails. You say, scale matters. Reference slavery and procreation. Well, again, I don't see why the scale matters. If the argument is, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of people out there, but if you don't make the argument, then the people that choose not to procreate aren't going to increase. You've got to get the message out there if you want to change things. You say masochism works just as well as my other examples. You're talking about putting your kid in the car and you might get into an accident. There are many examples. Well, again, I'm going to say, if the only reason you're putting somebody else in harm's way is simply because the only reason is you want to, you're doing it wrong. And the one example you don't talk about is, can I put you in harm's way only because I want to? Would that be ethical for me to put you in harm's way only because I want to? Thanks.